Welcome to Backyard Cigars. Thank you for joining me. I was going through the cigars and I said to myself, I haven't smoked a Viaje in quite a while. Normally, a lot of people don't watch the reviews on the Viaje cigars. And I kind of equate that to the fact that maybe, just maybe, because they aren't so widely available, that perhaps a lot of people either don't know much about them, or what they do know about them is what a lot of us know, that they're kind of hit and miss. They can be really good, they can be okay, or they can be kind of like, not so good. And so they avoid them, and thus, why even watch the reviews? But what I've got here today is a Viaje Circa 45, number 3, Nicaragua. And this is an homage cigar. This is definitely an homage cigar to Cuba. Andre Farkas makes that very clear. Andre Farkas being the master blender at Viaje Cigars and the owner of the company. And his favorite Cuban brands are Punch and Partagas. And so you've got that band that looks a lot like the Punch band, and the 45 being a nod to 1845, when Partagas first began their cigar business in Cuba. So an homage cigar. Look, a lot of cigar companies do homage cigars, and they're not as open about it. They kind of allude to the Cuban-esque flavors that you may get, or if they don't allude to a Cuban-esque description of the tobacco, they use the word Cuba somewhere in the name of the cigar, perhaps, or oftentimes there are just certain things about that cigar that you look at it and you say to yourself, yeah, it's an homage cigar. But Andre Farkas is not keeping any secrets about it. He's saying, look, this is a Nicaraguan puro, and the age of the tobaccos, I don't know. I tried to look it up, couldn't find out the age of the tobaccos, but nonetheless, Nicaraguan puro. And he admits, he says, look, it's a Nicaraguan puro and Aganorsa Salif Nicaraguan tobacco, but we really try to put some of that Cuban soul into it. And his love of Cuban cigars and of specifically Punch and Partagas is what drove the idea for the band and for the name of the cigar, which I think is okay. It's most of the time when you're talking about homage cigars, in the cigar industry, we're talking about Cuba, right? I mean, you're not going to find an homage cigar to Nicaragua, right? Or even the Dominican Republic. For the most part, you're going to find homage cigars to Cuba, the motherland, where it all began, or where it really took off. So, full-bodied cigar, full strength, and it measures in at 5.5 or 5 by 5/8 and a 58 ring gauge. So a healthy amount of tobacco in here. The cigar has been sitting in my humidor for about 7.5 months or so, at about 66, 67 RH. Today's weather, 56 degrees. Very nice day, very little wind. Perfect day for smoking a nice cigar like this. Let's look at the band again. It's very similar to the Punch band, right? But it's not trying to be a knockoff. And that's the trick, that it's similar, but he's open about the fact of why it's similar. And no one's saying there's Cuban tobacco in here. He named it kind of in a way to let you know what it references, but not a knockoff. And obviously, no matter how hard he tries or how good a blender he is, he's not going to really be able to capture what a Cuban cigar tastes like by just using Nicaraguan tobacco. You can come close, and I've had a few that have been pretty close, but you're not going to get, the Cuban experience. Just, different soil. That's all there is to it. But look, that's not the point of this cigar, to make it taste exactly like a Cuban cigar. It's to give you kind of a feeling of of the experience of smoking a Cuban cigar. At least that was his intention. And it's got a little bit of that earthy spice up front that you sometimes will get uh, from a Cuban cigar. But it, of course, barely into the first inch. I couldn't tell you how it's going to develop. Never smoked it before, but I'm not getting that initial twang that Cuban cigars are so well known for. That almost like a salty, citrusy, earthy, cedar-like flavor. I mean, maybe I'm describing it wrong right now. I'm not thinking clearly because I'm not smoking a Cuban cigar. I'm smoking a Nicaraguan cigar, and I want to keep it together here. So let me get acquainted with the cigar and come back and talk more about it. So, about an inch in, question, is it Cubanesque? Slightly Cubanesque, yes. It has a little bit of saltiness that I'm picking up. It's not intense. It's subtle, but it's there. And it has that earthiness. Much more pepper than I would normally find in most Cuban cigars, but not a bad thing. Not a bad thing for this cigar, or not a bad thing in general. And you do have some peppery, very peppery Cuban cigars. So that isn't to say that all Cuban cigars are creamy and smooth. That isn't the case. Yeah, it's Cubanesque, and this is something that I would say that if you like Nicaraguan tobacco and you like Cuban cigars, that you would probably enjoy this. To date, the closest cigar that I've ever had, that was Nicaraguan, that had in that really felt like a Cuban cigar, was the Hamlet Paredes in Salomon Vitola size, and that cigar, whoa! If you close your eyes, you can really just pretend and feel that you are smoking a Cuban cigar. Hands down, it's just really Cubanesque. But but I know that when I've spoken to some of my friends who are getting into cigars and have heard all of the mythology and all of the legendary history of Cuba and Cuban cigars, but have not had the chance to either smoke a Cuban cigar, or maybe they've smoked one, but they haven't had the chance to really buy them, will kind of look for cigars that are labeled or described as Cubanesque, because that's appealing to them. They're new to cigars. They want to experience something that might be similar to a Cuban cigar, even if it's not, right? And they'll search for these cigars, and oftentimes they will be disappointed, especially if they've had Cuban cigars and know what they taste like. But if they haven't had any, then they're none the wiser. Occasionally, you will find a cigar that is very Cubanesque and lives up to that reputation. In this one so far, I'm getting a little bit of that. But it's its own cigar in its own way, because it's Nicaraguan tobacco, and it's producing some of those beautiful Nicaraguan flavors that we love. The saltiness is there, followed by the pepper and the earth. And the ash just dropped off. Really nice, easy draw. Good aroma. Burn line has been decent. I haven't had any issues with it. on a 58 ring gauge cigar. It's smoking quite well. We'll be catching up. Listen, the more and more I smoke the cigar, the more and more I get not similarities, but I get hints of what I get in a Cuban cigar. And that's a good thing, because that means that he has succeeded in his goal to blend a cigar that has similarities. Yes, we can say that, I guess. Similarities to a Cuban cigar in certain aspects of the Cuban cigar profile, the Cuban tobacco profile. That saltiness, which is really known more as that Cuban twang. And while it is slightly larger than most Cuban cigars with a 58 ring gauge, at least in the ring gauge, it really looks quite elegant with its Cubanesque band, and excellent. I think it's an excellent homage cigar, and I don't see anything wrong with more cigar companies doing cigar homages to Cuba and just saying it, like just being upfront. Don't let someone else describe it as Cubanesque and say that it can be an alternative to a Cuban cigar. But the company should just come out and say, yeah, this is what we were shooting for. This was our goal. This isn't the same as when certain cigar companies will adopt a Cuban name in order to sort of come off as if they're dealing with Cuban tobacco. That's not the same thing here. This is a line that is introduced, the Circa 45, and I think it runs from numbers 1 to 4, I believe. There might even be a 5 now. And they come in different vitola sizes. And so this is number 3. Originally, this was a European exclusive, just for that market. And that was back in 2016. And about a year later after that, certain retailers in the United States were able to purchase this and make this available to their customers. Nowadays, you still don't see it a heck of a lot, but you see it much more, and you know that it's attainable, that you can obtain this cigar. It's obtainable. So that's what I meant to say. And you know what? For what it is, I think it's about $12, $13 on the Eastern Coast. Nice thick smoke. It is very full-bodied. It does pack a good amount of nicotine, but it tastes good. And that's really what, when you get right down to it, that's what you want. You want something that's going to taste good. So to sum it all up, a very good, slightly Cubanesque cigar, a well-done homage, and quality tobacco used in here that you get a good feeling of. Flavorful, not overly complex, but just complex enough, and really delivers the flavors that you're looking for in a cigar that claims to be an homage cigar. So I'm pleased with that. I would say to some folks who might say, well, can you age it like a Cuban cigar? Could you do that? Sure you could. Sure you could. Because generally, and not always, but generally you can age Nicaraguan tobaccos, Nicaraguan cigars, and they will age quite well. And in this case, with this cigar, already got laid down for about 7.5 months. My experiences with some of the Viaje cigars, which they're using Aganorsa leaf, is that these tobaccos, these Nicaraguan tobaccos that they're using, they can be a little intense. So they benefit from a little smoothing out. That is, unless you like an abundance of pepper. And make no mistake, even if you lay it down for the amount of time I did, 7 months, you're still going to get an abundance of pepper. But smoking these fresh, the Aganorsa leaves, they can be very pepper forward. And some folks might say, well, I don't really like that. I don't even like that in my Cuban cigars. That's why I age them for 3-4 years, whatever. I think you're good with 1 year if you want to go that far. I would just try it like that and experiment like that. In my case, 7 months, I think it's fine. And I think it would have been fine fresh. Probably a little bit more intense on the pepper. But you know what? No complaints here. This has been a good cigar. I can say I'm enjoying it, and I would hope that if you pick it up, that you enjoy it as well. If you have, you can leave some comments and let me know what you think of it. This one is a hit. So, thank you very much for watching Backyard Cigars. Till next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.